America's most consumed beverage, more than water. The U.S. imports 22 million bags a year.
Your morning breakfast ritual of coffee or tea might be getting a lot more expensive.
This will be indeed the golden age of America. It's coming back. They manipulated their currencies, subsidized their exports.
We import from about 14 different countries right now, and every single one of them is on the tariff list.
That morning cup of joe is likely going to get more expensive.
So what does this mean for 67% of U.S. adults who depend on that caffeine fix?
Imagine waking up to discover that America's most consumed beverage, coffee, even more popular than water, is suddenly caught in the middle of a global trade war. The United States imports roughly 22 million bags of coffee beans every year, and now that daily cup fueling nearly 67% of U.S. adults is at risk of becoming painfully more expensive. The situation escalated after President Donald Trump, pushing forward his aggressive trade agenda, slapped sweeping tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and more than a dozen other coffee-producing nations. The move was framed as a bold strike to protect American jobs and fight currency manipulation and export subsidies, but it quickly backfired. In April, universal tariffs of up to 25% hit shipments from top suppliers like Colombia, Brazil, and Vietnam, countries that dominate the world coffee trade. Even Canada, traditionally a close ally and major hub for processing beans before they reach U.S. roasters, was dragged into the crossfire. Ottawa condemned the decision, retaliating with $30 billion in countermeasures, specifically targeting American goods, including coffee. The fallout has been brutal. Just this week, a massive U.S. coffee shipment headed for overseas markets was rejected outright, sparking chaos in an industry that touches millions of lives. From Seattle's iconic roasteries to small-town diners in Texas, the economic tremors are already spreading. Exporters are left scrambling for new buyers, while Canada has moved swiftly, cutting fresh deals with Europe and Asia to fill the void, threatening to push American growers, processors, and port cities to the sidelines. For decades, coffee entered the U.S. tariff-free, acknowledging that the crop can't be produced in large enough volumes domestically. Now, that once stable supply chain is cracking under pressure, and what was once a simple morning ritual has turned into a symbol of geopolitical tension. Prices are climbing, shelves could soon face shortages, and consumers are left wondering if their next cup of joe might cost twice as much. Stay tuned, because this battle over beans isn't just about caffeine. It's about control, power, and the future of America's most beloved morning tradition. It's the easiest way to support the channel, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. So, let's dive in. The real flashpoint came this week when a massive U.S. coffee shipment, hundreds of containers packed with beans leaving ports in California, Texas, and New Jersey, was shockingly turned away by multiple foreign buyers. Sources close to the negotiations confirm it wasn't a simple business decision. This was payback, a direct response to Washington's steep tariff hikes. Instead of waiting, importers in Europe and Asia quietly began shifting their orders to other suppliers. And within hours, Canada swooped in. Canadian exporters moved with lightning speed, finalizing multi-year contracts with buyers in Germany, Japan, and South Korea, deals reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The plan? Canada would buy beans from Brazil, Colombia, and Vietnam, roast and package them domestically, and then ship them straight to overseas markets, cutting American middlemen out of the picture completely. For Canada, it's a once-in-a-generation windfall, a chance to grab market share in some of the world's most profitable coffee hubs, strengthen trade ties with Asia and Europe, and establish itself as a reliable partner, where the U.S. is now seen as volatile. For American exporters, though, it's a nightmare. From Long Beach to Houston, ports are reporting stalled cargo and clogged warehouses. In Seattle, New Orleans, and Miami, roasters are bracing for shrinking international orders that once kept their facilities humming. But the rejection wasn't just about lost sales. It sent a chilling signal. Buyers around the world are now more willing than ever to pivot away from U.S. suppliers, opting instead for countries they view as stable. The ripple effects are already visible. In Seattle, the beating heart of America's coffee culture, warehouse staff and dock workers are seeing hours cut. In New Orleans, a key hub for both imports and exports, roasters are warning they may have to idle equipment if global demand doesn't bounce back. And in Miami, shipments to Latin America and the Caribbean have slowed so dramatically that trucking companies are scrambling to keep their drivers on the road. The layoffs have already begun. In Washington state, one of the nation's largest roasting facilities, employing more than 400 people, has announced temporary furloughs, citing market volatility as the new normal. Triggered by trade disruptions, the ripple effects are spreading fast. In Texas, packaging plants that once handled steady orders for Asian buyers have slashed shifts, leaving workers uncertain about their future. Smaller family-owned roasteries in Portland, Denver, and Atlanta are reporting sales drops of 15% to 30% in just the last month, an alarming dip that threatens their survival. And the pain doesn't stop at the docks or roasting plants. It's creeping right into America's coffee shops. Owners already struggling with tariff-driven price hikes now face the brutal reality of paying more for less. Wholesale costs for green coffee beans have surged 14.5% year-over-year, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Analysts warn that if export markets remain frozen, domestic roasters will simply push even more of those costs onto American consumers. That could mean a $5 latte in places where it used to be $3.50, and even higher prices in tourist-heavy cities like New York, San Francisco, and Chicago. The broader supply chain is being squeezed from every direction. Importers, who once relied on quick turnover and razor-thin margins, are now facing the expense of warehousing unsold stock. Packaging suppliers, many dependent on large roasting contracts, are losing orders by the week. Even dairy producers in Wisconsin and California are sounding the alarm, warning that a slowdown in cafes and coffee houses will cut directly into milk and cream demand. Agricultural economists are now projecting that the U.S. coffee sector, an industry generating $343 billion in annual economic activity, could shrink by as much as 8% if rejections continue and buyers cement deals with Canadian processors. That would mark one of the steepest single-year declines in the industry's modern history. And here's the kicker: Canada's rise as a global coffee player is no accident. Years of strategic investment, diversification, and trade positioning are now paying off at the exact moment America is turning inward with protectionist policies. For decades, the U.S. served as the hub, importing raw beans from Latin America, Africa, and Asia, processing them through massive roasting facilities and exporting finished products worldwide. But now, that model, the very backbone of America's role in global coffee trade, is showing cracks that Canada is only too eager to exploit. Demand, supply chains, and trade agreements have always determined who dominates global commodities. But tariffs, especially when rolled out suddenly, have shredded the sense of reliability that once made U.S. suppliers the gold standard. Think about it. 1 month, Washington slaps a 25% tariff on Canadian coffee. The next month, it threatens 45% duties on Mexican beans, and then hints at reciprocal tariffs on Brazil and Vietnam. To foreign buyers,